The Indianapolis Colts have been speculated and linked to a potential trade for former and future Hall of Famer in what would probably be one of the biggest blockbuster and interesting trades, to say the least, in recent memory. Again, mid-season trades just don't happen very often in the NFL, as much as they do in the baseball world, in the basketball world, in the NHL world. You just don't see trades often, and a lot of it has to do with just understanding a game plan, but especially when you're talking about a former Pro Bowler, potential Hall of Famer, joining up a team that he's never been a part of before. It strikes a lot of interest, and so I think this is going to be one that we're going to keep an eye on. But what's going on? It's Elijah from Sports Talk Indy, where we cover all things Colts. And there's a lot of people new to this channel, so if you're new, welcome. Thank you for being a part of this. Please like and subscribe to be a part of something that we're just covering in-depth Colts coverage, whether it's the breaking news or behind the scenes. We're here to cover it, and we're here to cover it as well as we can. So let's get into it. We're also going to cover a few other stories going into the season, going into this game, but this one really came across the desk today, coming from Colts Wire, and there's a lot of speculation on midseason trades, right? And I think a lot of people look at this, and the Colts also have been linked to another potential future Hall of Famer, and we got some news on that. But to start, the big one, right? Anthony Richardson goes down. He has an orbital fracture in his eye. It's likely that he's going to be missing at least 4 weeks, potentially could be missing the rest of the season, especially as the Colts look to potentially move on from the former first-round pick. So you have now Brett Rippon taking over the backup spot behind Riley Leonard. Again, neither of those are exactly an ideal for a team looking to make a deep push into the playoffs, and especially when you look at some of the history of Daniel Jones's injury. A lot of it had to do with the offensive line, but regardless, you have to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. So this report came in. The Colts would be speculated to trade a 7th-round pick for New York Giants backup quarterback now, Russell Wilson. Now, this would be absolutely astronomical. Russell Wilson has had probably one of the most intense drop-offs I've ever seen in a quarterback, but this could provide something that I think would be surprising to a lot of people. This is one that I don't think I would have expected, and yet it makes sense. Colts would be losing almost nothing, taking over almost a very small contract in regards to what they're paying everyone else. They have some cap room to play with. This would be kind of one of the crazier trades, and yet again, it just makes sense. Russell Wilson may be towards the tail end of his career, obviously getting benched in favor of Jackson Dart. But let's not forget, against the Dallas Cowboys this year, he threw for over 450 yards and 4 touchdowns in one singular game. So it's not like the guy is completely unusable. I mean, he was a starting quarterback as of week 1 this year. He started last year with the Steelers, started the year before with the Broncos, and so on and so forth. And this is a guy who has had a fantastic career prior to about 4 or 5 years ago. But so did Joe Flacco. And Joe Flacco lit up the Steelers last night to put up 33 points, and honestly could have put up 35 or 36, excuse me. All that to say, to have a guy like that on your backup, as your backup, would be encouraging, to say the least. He's not fighting for the starting job. That job is Daniel Jones, and it will be until something drastic changes. He's got no leash right now. So I think this is one of those instances where I think the Colts, if this were an opportunity and a potential, I wouldn't be shocked if the Colts went out and made a move for a dynamic quarterback like this. Now, the downside with Russell Wilson isn't anything that has to do with his playability. It has everything to do with his vibes. Russell Wilson historically has been known for kind of being that vibe killer. He's not a motivator. He's not a leader in that sense. And so one of the things the Colts have going for them right now is that they have a fantastic locker room vibe right now. And you don't want to throw that away, especially for a backup quarterback. So the big thing that the Colts would have to weigh then is not Russell Wilson's talent or ability to throw the football, but would have everything to do with what does he bring to the table as far as locker room situation. Because I think that's going to play more into it than I think people realize, and I would hope that that's something that this culture values. When I first started covering the Colts several seasons ago, it was the Matt Ryan season. And the big thing coming out was the locker room, was the culture. Everything was broken. You had Jeff Saturday coming in literally just to basically be a culture pastor to try and solve the issue that was the Colts culture. To bring in a guy that may not add to that, but may actually subtract from that, feels like it wouldn't even be worth a 7th-round pick. Again, a 7th-round pick. You don't even see those guys starting in the NFL. That being said, it could be something that just as an insurance situation, it might not be the worst thing. We've got 3 weeks to the trade deadline. There's a lot that can happen in 3 weeks. The Colts can be in a completely different situation. The Colts could be 7-1. They could be 8-1. They could be 5-3. God forbid. All that, you're looking at this division, and it's a very winnable division right now. You've got the Jags, who are on a hot streak, and you got the Colts. The Colts are currently the number 1 seed. This could be the chance to do something, to strike while the iron's hot and bring in a guy that is of this caliber. Now, other thing I want to get into in this video, and then we'll cover something else in another video. So be on the lookout tomorrow. We'll be posting a second video because there's another thing that came out today that was really, really surprising. But the Colts actually in talks with Trey Hendrickson, or with the Cincinnati Bengals in regard to Trey Hendrickson. It actually came out today that the Colts had made an offer, and that what the Cincinnati Bengals were asking for back was outside of the realm of possibilities. It came out that the Colts were willing to pick up Trey Hendrickson's contract. They were able to pick up all that stuff. What the Bengals wanted in return was Grover Stewart, which is obviously, like, you want Grover Stewart, but if you get a guy like Trey Hendrickson, nothing else on that D-line matters besides D-Buck. So they wanted him, but they also wanted a first or a second pick, which means not only do you want a staple of this Colts defensive line now, but you also want what could be a very high-value draft pick for a 1-year rental in Trey Hendrickson, and you have no idea what's going to happen at the end of the season. You have no idea where he's at. This goes to show, one, that the Colts were more aggressive than we initially thought they were in the offseason, obviously signing Charvarius Ward, obviously signing Cam Bynum, and several others. But it also goes to show that they're still not willing to spend this stupid amounts of money that others may want them to spend. So it's definitely interesting, and that one, again, that's no speculation. That came out today from insiders inside the NFL. There's no speculation. That was actually reported. That is what the asking price was for the Cincinnati Bengals for Trey Hendrickson. Now, this is where I think it gets interesting, because up until Wednesday, last night, or 2 nights ago, I think the Bengals were in a much different spot when it comes to potentially selling off players. But now, you just had a come-from-behind win against the Steelers. You're 3-4. You're getting Joe Burrow back within maybe 1 or 2 months. Joe Flacco looks like he can maintain his own. And if the Bengals are 7-7 or 7-8, I really think they're going to want to keep every piece they have. But that being said, the Colts are still in the mix as far as sleeper teams to go out and get Trey Hendrickson. So be on the lookout for that. We will be covering that as soon as we get any information on all trade rumors, on all trade stuff going on. So be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.